are live.
Well, I can talk about how I didn't do a video this week. I tried really hard. It's just because like normally when I'm on the iPad, it automatically records like all the brush strokes or whatever. So when I do it on my computer, I have to do it manually.
Hmm.
And I was also drinking, so I just, I forgot like the most interesting parts of the speed draw were cut out, and I was like, this isn't worth it. This is so boring to watch. So
Yeah.
no speed draw this week. It's all right.
Hmm.
They'll
It is all right.
survive.
I'm sure they will. For years they had never, seen your speed drawings, and
Yeah, exactly. And they've made it this far, so
yeah. Hello to 2 + 4 × 5 and Greg. And Greg says it's gorgeous art. So yeah,
oh, thank you.
yes.
As always, I'm gonna try to do some like varying styles um for the interludes just to mix it up. So
Yep, yep. Um, I think that we can say the audience participation reminder for this chapter 4.x is going to be talk about your thoughts on Max comparing Caden to himself and her protestations. How much of a difference between them do you see? So that'll be at the end of the episode. Um,
right.
all right. I don't know. I think we might be ready to just jump in. I guess I'm a little surprised we haven't heard from Vale yet, but let's go on to themes. So I thought a major theme of this chapter was compartmentalization. Caden feels like somehow a counterpoint to Taylor in a lot of ways to me.
Hmm.
Um, because she is like this other person who can justify all these crazy actions with like kind of a really thin defense of like, oh, it's all for Aster. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I thought I mean, and we'll see it kind of in the end when she does something that she obviously wants to do because she's doing it, and she's like, "Forgive me, Aster. This is your fault." She doesn't say it like that, but I was like, that is such a like oof way of saying that. Like, don't put the responsibility on your like how old is Aster? Like
One
a
year.
year old,
Yeah.
11 months old or
Mm-hmm.
something, yeah.
Mm. It's ridiculous. Um,
Yeah.
Let me think. But yeah, her compartmentalization I had written here is strong enough that she's worked for a white supremacist criminal organization for 10 years and thinks, but I'm not a racist. Uh, you know.
Yeah, she seems to like I mean, she straight up says like, "Well, it's not my fault that I'm a racist." It's his fault. And then she also like pushes maybe like that's a thing that she does is just kind of pushes blame onto other people a lot because she in like a very different way is now able to put the blame onto Aster instead of Max.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I mean, I'm sure when it was like, oh, I'm following him and he has a plan, it was a different like mindset, but it all came to the
Hmm.
same thing. And so it seems like she's always like finding a way to build this story for herself that lets her do these things.
Yeah, which is very Taylor, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of something that I think part like they wanted I say they that I think that he wanted to highlight with this chapter is that like obviously Taylor's goals are much more like good in our opinions than and in the book's opinion than Caden's, but they still both use the same kinds of mental techniques to just be like, oh, I can kind of do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, think we can move on to deception. I think is kind of a sub theme in this of compartmentalization, but then it branches off where the self deception is kind of like oh, 2 + 4 × 5 says Caden, I was just acting racist. Max is the actual racist. Um,
True.
but yeah, deception. So she, deceives herself with her compartmentalization, but she also like feels like she's the only one who can see through Max and his whole shtick. Um,
Mhm.
and kind of thinks that she can see through Theo's facade as well. Although, as you'll point out, it's kind of wishy-washy. Sometimes she says she doesn't think she can read him, and sometimes she's like, I can read him super well.
Yeah, exactly. Seemingly like anything she thinks lets slip, she can see 100%. Which and thing with Max. She's like, someone else would think. And honestly, like I believed her with Max. Like 100%. She's like, everybody else would see this conversation as innocent, but I know better. And I was like, I bet you do, Kaden. Um, but I don't know how much I trust her with Theo's emotions, honestly.
I don't think she's too far off on Theo, and I only say that because we know Theo better from later in the
Yeah,
story.
later on.
So it does match up with who he is, but I do think that there's probably the amount that she understands about him is from her like experience with Max, but
Mhm.
then the holes in her understanding are from like not really knowing like Theo's inner self. Like she's like, I'm not going to push this topic and whatever,
Mhm.
you know. So I don't know. I do think that she's projecting on him a bit, but I think that she understands the terrible environment he grew up
Yeah, I think maybe she just knows like Max so well that that's what gives her that ability.
in. Right, right, yeah. Um.
I can
So,
talk about, I wasn't
oh yeah,
sure like even if to call it a theme, but there was like definitely a theme in the language of the book.
right, right.
Um,
We definitely had talked about it, and I forgot to write it out. As you see, this is
that's
a
all
rather
right.
barren section.
There's like lots of I was thinking maybe I should like write down each of these keywords, but I didn't. But there was lots of talk of um perfection, chaos, cleanliness, filthiness, that kind of stuff. Like that
Yeah, the
really
word scum
shines
was
through.
used. About the ABB members. But I don't know. It felt more general than that.
Yeah, it just kind of just shines throughout the whole chapter, which
And
is
then you
like
learn her cape name is Purity at the end,
which
like
is so
from
bad.
Kaiser. Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. Like any deniability or like anything you can latch on about Caden throughout it and like give her the benefit of the doubt. And no, she still goes by Purity.
Yeah, I mean it's like all the people in real life now who are like openly calling themselves nationalists again, and it's like, oh boy, this is getting pretty bad out there. That they feel totally comfortable just calling themselves nationalists on TV.
Yeah, the language is pretty stark, so um I just thought that was interesting. It just like adds a lot of flavor to the interlude.
Yeah, yeah, it really makes you. It's one of the first examples, because again, I think the Danny interlude is pretty close to the way Taylor thinks.
Mm.
The third interlude is just kind of bonkers and bizarre. And then the second one, like, as
Just
different
has
of
some
people as
problems.
they may be, I think Glory Girl and Taylor do have a lot in common, actually, and have, like, a very straightforward thinking path at the beginning of the story.
Uh-huh.
Um, and so they all three of those chapters you don't really get to see it, but in this I feel like there's a lot of like subtle like you get to see the way Caden thinks more than you got to see, like, I guess Danny's pretty. I don't know. Maybe I'm underestimating those other chapters, but I just feel like this is just a really different-y person.
Yeah, this is very far from Taylor. Even though he said it's kind of similar, but like the way that she thinks, the writing of it is very, very different. It's kind of like um because when I was reading sorry, when I was writing the overview, I had a lot less to go off of for goofs because of like how dreary but also kind of like um I don't know, like feminine the writing is. Like there's just not really a lot of it's just like Kaden feeling bad about herself and feeling bad for Theo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. It feels like those the first. It kind of feels like the first couple Taylor chapters actually when she's alone and it's just kind of
Oh,
like
yeah,
way
definitely.
more of a drudge. Like I think that's the biggest like difference between the first arc and the other ones is like it's so like it feels so bad to just be Taylor alone, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. It does feel kind of similar to that.
Yeah. Vale says Caden is in such denial. It's very true. And the other thing is like I don't want to make jokes with these guys the same way I want to make jokes like with the Undersiders. I want to like
Yeah.
clown on her and like
Like like when I write about when I spin everything that Alex says to be like positive.
yeah.
Like that's way more funny. I couldn't do that about Kaden. Cause
Yeah.
well, I don't know. Yeah, some might say Alec actually sucks, so maybe that's fair.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I feel like they don't have enough background on Caden to know. I like at the very beginning. Um,
yeah,
like I feel like when you just fully flesh out know both of the character stories, I think Caden is still a worse person than Alec for sure. Like,
definitely.
yeah,
Alec, okay, I hate to quote this, but like every time in Adventure Time, that Jake the dog admits to doing a crime, and then he goes, "I didn't know any better."
yeah,
Like that's really how I see Alec, which is like, I don't know. Maybe not everyone will see it that way, which is fine.
yeah, it's good. So
I didn't know it was wrong. Sure, we can, we
if you
can
want to
get
close
started.
in on this, yeah, I'm gonna let you take the major point, especially since
I'll
you
take
wrote it.
Yeah, I wanted to take the reins. So we're introduced to Kaden as she watches her sleeping baby like a creep. Um, and she's just kind of standing there thinking about how perfect her baby is. Even when she's awake, she like doesn't throw tantrums and just does everything right. Um, she says literally there was nothing Aster could do, nor or sorry, have or be that would make her better than she was. And I noted that I hate that Wildbow doesn't use the Oxford comma. Is it because he's Canadian? Is that a Canadian thing?
I feel okay. Maybe I'm wrong, but I almost feel like he does use it sometimes.
Sometimes.
Like I'm literally looking at a sentence in this chapter where he uses an Oxford comma.
Oh, Kaden just wasn't using it when she was thinking. So that's fair. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes he uses it and sometimes he doesn't, and it drives me insane. I'm like I'm not for just like skipping out on the Oxford comma. I don't think
Yeah,
it's acceptable.
I'm on the same side as you.
Okay.
Caden wouldn't use the Oxford comma exactly.
Exactly. That's how we knew she's a villain even at the beginning of this interlude. So Kaden admits that she finds great comfort in Aster in a world that she has little hope for, which I guess is the first reflection into her worldview that we see. So Kaden, with great strain, steps away from the nursery, and sees in her living room a pudgy 15-year-old named Theo, which she apparently had forgotten he was even there, even though she like invited him over to babysit, right?
Yeah, yeah. She just
She-
what a great parent.
I feel so bad for Theo. She feels like pretty guilty about that, which good. And she apologizes to Theo for forgetting to feed him. Um, she notes that like even though Theo seemed enraptured by his show, he mutes it immediately when Kaden starts to speak. Like he just turns his full attention to her and like sits
Mm-hmm.
very
Mm-hmm.
respectfully, sorry. Um, and I think this like is getting to Caden or whatever because it's how he's being raised by Max. She's not about it. Um, and Theo's like, "Oh, it's okay," but Caden says, I think the quote she just says, it's like a next sentence, and it says, "It wasn't." So I'm not sure if that's Caden's thought or Theo's thought. It's kind of like the same idea. Do you think that it's just her thinking what Theo is thinking?
I think it's her thinking what Theo's thinking. I think this chapter is very like definitely from her perspective. I don't think we
Yeah.
get that many more instances like the arc 3 chapter where it's really unclear what's happening. I can't think of any other chapters like that off the top of my head. But
Yeah,
yeah.
2 + 4 × 5. I changed my thing to live chat, so now if you guys want to talk about Nazis and white supremacists, we get to
Oh
see it.
crap. Sorry, live
Yeah,
chat. My bad.
yeah. I didn't realize until they
Yep.
mentioned it.
Way to be a grammar Nazi. Uh
Thank you.
I'm actually gonna let me think. I'm gonna put a reminder for myself somewhere at the bottom of this doc because I'll look at it after the show to change that each time. So continue. I will just do this
Sure. So we hear that Kaden is going out in costume, and she's trying to read Theo's expression about that to no avail. I think it's kind of interesting that she like wonders about Theo's perspective on her being a villain. Maybe it's not that her being a villain. I think she like worries that about his judgment to some degree, or she just like wants to know because she wants him to be independent of Max in some way. Um, she resists the urge to push him further though when she can't figure out like what he's thinking and arranges some meal plans for him. She's trying to be
so
like comforting by offering him that freedom. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I feel like when he when she doesn't push on it, I think the idea that's implied there, and maybe I'm projecting, but it seems like it based on later stuff, is that she knows that he doesn't approve of her or any of the Empire 88 people and what they do as capes.
Yeah. Which like good for Theo because he's only 15 at this point and like has been raised in isolation here. Like I'm assuming he probably goes to like some kind of private school or something like that
I
because
was
Max is
thinking,
really wealthy, right?
yeah, I was thinking it would. I know that there are private schools, but I thought that it's reasonably likely that he went to Arcadia or was
Arcadia.
homeschooled in some way.
Yeah, that
Because
makes sense.
Arcadia is still like the nice school, you know.
hmm
So,
I
mm,
I would wonder if he would be more inclined to homeschool him though because
yeah, because he's
Arcadia's
super
got like
controlling.
yeah, too much variety there.
Yeah,
So,
there are
y
types that I wouldn't want you interacting with.
yeah, so I love Theo, and I'm happy that he's, like, already at that point even though, like, his life has been so controlled and sheltered. Um, I don't know, I think it says something like he can tell that something's wrong.
Right, right.
Like, you can only like um pressure your ideals onto someone so much, which is interesting because Caden like kind of thinks the opposite. Like it was out of her control.
I feel like Caden got a soft sell for a long time, and she
Mhm.
kind of did that thing that a lot of people do where they don't they don't think about the fact that they're like giving into temptation because like she obviously wants the like companionship of Max, etc. Like she married the guy.
Uh,
I think that she legitimately like wanted to be around him, etc. And then like that charisma led to her just making like, oh well, if I, it's fine to do blah blah blah, and like always like kind of, I don't know how to describe it. I'm foolishly at a loss for words, but it's the kind of like the slipper, it's not quite the slippery slope, but it's just like each little decision makes the next decision easier.
yeah, which is very Taylor. So
Yeah, she digs the hole a little deeper each time she does something, and then she also, her mindset changes.
yeah,
Radicalization pipeline. Yeah, it is that, Greg. You're right.
that works. So she's like trying to offer him some freedom, like it seemingly like with some options. She's like, "Oh, here's $30. You can keep it for yourself, or you can go rent a movie, or you could do whatever." And he doesn't seem to really care. He just asks when she'll be back, and Kaden makes the decision to offer him to spend the night babysitting instead of taking him back to his dad's. I pulled a quote here. The times when Theo let a glimmer of emotion show were few and far between. A smile, genuine, touched Theo's face and almost broke Caden's heart in the process. "I love to," Theo replied, meaning it. So yeah, I just kind of like the touch of her saying exactly what
Yeah, like
Theo is
it
thinking.
wasn't meaning it. Yeah. I also
Yeah.
wanted to point out that this is the Oxford comma that I spotted in the book when I was like saying that I saw one. Because like
Well,
one, dun,
I
dun.
don't know if
Or
I
is
mean,
it
I guess
is it
that's
not because it's
technically
not
it.
like a list? I
I
thought
think
that.
it has to be a list to be an
Okay,
Oxford
okay.
comma.
I thought that this was still one, but I'm also dumb, so
I'm not
I think
exactly
you're
sure.
probably right.
Um, Kaden, yeah, so I just noticed she just seems really sure of his emotions while simultaneously being like, "I can't read anything." Um,
Maybe it's because like
and
those are the times when it broke through, like
yeah,
the fact that he couldn't meet her eye. He's like not even that good of a liar, you know what I mean? Okay, the
yeah,
Oxford commas are only on the list according to 2 + 4 × 5, so that one isn't one. So maybe he doesn't use them, and I
he
were
does
wrong.
never use them.
Because he hates
Disgusting.
you.
He wanted to disgust us. Um, Yeah, so she's like it seems like she is projecting onto Theo here, but it works because of how familiar with his situation that she is. So it kind of helps their dynamic a little bit. Um,
They're
Theo
they're
says
like
that it's
both trauma survivors of the same person, and they're like, "Ha, we still have to talk to that guy all the time."
yeah, we still hang out with him. Theo's like, it's fine that his show is interrupted, but Caden feels sure that it isn't and begins to like get really angry at Theo's dad for draining him of his personality and assertiveness. I always had wondered here, like, I just think the like Caden, Max, Theo interactions are interesting because of how little um like misogyny plays into it, and I had wondered for a moment. I was like, is the assertiveness part like that misogyny, like, oh, Theo doesn't act like a man or whatever that Caden's feeling, but I don't think that it is. um what do
Yeah, I
you
don't
think?
I don't get that vibe either. Which is weird because usually misogyny
Yeah,
goes
because it would
hand in
make so
hand
much
with these
sense
kinds of
for those
people. Um,
to go hand in hand, but in their situation it kind of doesn't, just because they're capes, I
I
think.
I think that I don't know if like there's so there are a lot more women who are capes is one
Hmm.
thing. I don't
Hmm.
know if he could afford to um
Discount them.
yeah, like there's just an amount like a firepower aspect to it.
Yeah.
um and I mean, I guess you could
She,
say that about any given group, but the idea is that if he's just like one echelon more inclusive, he gets like so much more utility.
hmm. Do you know if there's any like breakdown between the classifications and like genders that they lean towards or anything? Like, are thinkers more likely to be tinkers are definitely more likely to be male as far as I can tell, just like from the characters we've met.
I So I think that may be a bias in like the actual character makeup of Worm, but I don't think
Right.
that that's true overall, like especially
Okay.
with what we see in Ward and uh as far as like there is this really good portion in Ward where Victoria thinks to herself about like she's trying to work out the differences between male and female tinkers that she's met, and she has this idea that like they kind of like the male tinkers she's met seem to be more like reserved and like bad at speaking, but a lot of the female tinkers are like various sorts of outgoing, like either ranting, raving, or like can't stop talking because they like because it's Kenzie, or
Yeah.
like Dragon, who's just very empathetic and good with people, like being like an effective outgoing leader.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of reflective of women in STEM too. Uh, all right. So this time, oh, what does she say? Oh, yeah, she tries to like offer Theo little kindnesses. Um she says that's all she can do, but like maybe actually like caring about
Yeah,
Theo.
I think that if she like I don't
If
know,
she loved
remembered that he was
him,
there. Yeah, yeah. If she had
treated him like her son or something,
yeah.
which I think is maybe hard because she kind of I think she like became a step parent to him when he was 12 or 13.
Yeah,
So
I think that's
it's
accurate.
a little bit of disconnect there still. But she's been working with Max for 11 years, they said. So she did know him since he was a baby.
Yeah, and also, I mean, on top of that, like she is willing to call up Max's son to get him to come babysit. And I don't think
Yeah.
like maybe that's just a contrived reason to talk to Max, but like that seems extreme.
I I don't think so. I think that
Yeah.
he's often there because we'll see him there later, like in a random
Yeah, I
situation
think she's
again.
trying to give him reprieve from Max in a very genuine way, and she still just doesn't like she thinks of him to that extent, but she doesn't think of him the same way she thinks of Aster. She doesn't
Yeah.
seem to have it doesn't feel like she has any like I hate to like delineate, but like any like familial love for him, just kind of like, oh, I don't want bad things to happen to that poor boy Theo.
Poor pudgy boy.
Yeah.
So this time before she talks, she checks the TV to make sure she's not interrupting anything, which I honestly thought was kind of a nice moment. Um, and she tells Theo to wish her luck, which he just does, like he takes it as a command. Um, and the contrived tone stings Kaden, but she moves on and leaves the apartment to head to the roof.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and takes off her bathrobe. Do you want to read the quote here?
Yeah, yeah. I did want to take a moment to point out 2 plus 4 times 5 said first, string theory is certainly outgoing. Which, yeah, I was thinking about her in the ranting and raving category. Um, and then also said, are Theo and Aster half siblings? Yes, they are.
Yes.
Um, so, I mean, that is also a reason to keep them around each other and knowing each other, but
Yeah.
beyond that, it just seems like I don't know. It feels like she should care for him more. I don't know. The wind ripped at her hair, blew cold against her face as she tumbled head over heels. Seeing only glimpses of streetlights and cars below her, she waited. Her apartment building was 15 stories tall, which gave her less time than one might expect. All it would take was 1 second of doubt, one mistake, a momentary hesitation, and she would hit the ground.
Yeah, so the thought that saves her here is of her daughter, and she says that's pretty constant ever since she's been born. And that's the reminder that she needs as why she cleans up the city.
Mm-hmm. I added a comment in here that I have heard actually from several different like places reviewing this, like kind of what I think is a misconception that her power requires some like specific emotional push to activate. Um, I think she just has to think of Aster to like justify to herself why she's going out in costume and doing this stuff, and like why she keeps doing this.
Um, I was fairly sure that it was like needing an emotional push because it seems like she's more powerful as well when she's being more emotional, like when she gets very angry or later on, she's going fucking crazy. Is
Yeah,
that
I
is that
I felt
wrong?
like
I kind of want to confer to the wiki.
well, sure. I mean, we can do that. I felt like that later on when she's doing that, it's more like she's just letting loose and just letting all the collateral damage happen because she's trying to destroy as much as possible. Um, so I kind of felt like it wasn't necessarily because I mean she has a much more I don't know she has one of the powers that actually has like a power source.
Yeah, I guess that we kind of don't. She doesn't really need to have two power sources going on. One like her emotions, and then the
Yeah,
other is like her. She's kind of like a glow stick
yeah. She's like a glow in the dark Casper where you got to leave it out in the sun for a while, and then once
to
that little
charge you up.
ghost has charged up, then he'll be green all night or whatever. Um, but doesn't Caden have a thought about how Theo's face reminds her of Max, or am I just thinking of another unrelated scene from the Ward chapter I read last night? Um,
She might say it some other time, but she did not say it this chapter.
yeah, maybe she says that in the later stuff from Theo's perspective or something. Um,
Well, the wiki doesn't mention anything about the emotions, so I guess you're right. I had also had that misconception, I
yeah,
guess,
well, that's why I wanted to mention it. I really do think it's very common that
just because
people.
of how it's kind of written here, I think.
Yeah, but I don't think beyond the standard like being in the mind state of when you had your trigger event makes you more powerful. I don't think that her feelings around Aster are actually linked to that. Um because it's such a like unrelated thing, she was
Yeah,
like dying of dehydration and that's what made her trigger. So,
yeah.
yeah.
She had a physical trigger, which I kind of want. We can talk more about physical triggers at the end, because like I don't get them as much,
I
but
yeah, I can't even like think of that many physical triggers. Like all the ones I can think of are like emotion. Hers is one of the only ones, and I kind of thought hers was the like because it gives her photosynthesis, right? So like it's a
yeah, she's
weird
a
like hunger
plant lady.
desperation thing. I don't know.
Um, So Caden's power is activated in a flash of blinding light. We see that she has flying powers and leaves a trail of white behind her, and then her brown eyes and hair also glow white, so she doesn't need a mask. It's seemingly like very, very bright. Um, in the other art that I saw, like her skin is glowing as well, so she's like not visible at all, but I don't know.
I
I
got the
like it when her
impression that
eyeballs
it's
are glowing.
I got the impression that you kind of can't look at her head because of how bright it is, but you could look at the
Yeah.
rest of her. Um,
Yeah, and her she mentions her costume glows as well, so I wonder if it's like a spoilies, but like a Victoria situation where it's like everything that she kind of identifies with, and her maybe like her hair and her brown eyes, uh, like she specifically wants to cover.
Yeah, it might be that, or like I'm guessing because she was with E88 that she has like an actual good costume. She might
Mm.
have like a material that reflects light really well, and the fact that she
Oh,
is the extreme light source, um, that would
yeah,
mean
that
that,
tracks.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I really do think it's only her hair and her eyes. But Taylor talks about it later on as being like so bright that if you look at it, it's akin to like looking at the sun, and you like instantly start getting light trails.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So nobody can look at her directly, so she doesn't even need the mask. And it seems like it would be hard to identify her. So we learn about Caden's routine. She patrols for a couple hours and then decides like the best course of action for her night. For a year, she's been targeting the ABB, and she strikes at the low-level gang operations like shipments and dealers, and then gathers info simultaneously. I guess she's just like grilling them, kind of like how Victoria did when she was beating up that E88 guy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, she, why did
You
I
know what?
wrote
I didn't even
lunch
think about
instead of
this.
lung.
Yeah, I didn't correct that because it was funny, and I thought you might have meant to do that. Um,
No.
um, but I didn't even think of this till just now. Another like flying cape, like grilling a gang member being Victoria, and I kind of think for all the like heavy Victoria haters in the Worm total audience, like if you
Uh,
compare her to like what Caden does, which is just the same thing, but instead of Nazis, she is a Nazi. Like she's not beating them up, she just is one. It's like that's
yeah,
so much worse.
I know. People people don't like Victoria. It's okay. They'll
Yeah,
like her later, probably.
hopefully. Um, anyway.
2 plus 4 times 5 says maybe Kaden was just emotionally hyping herself up to convince herself to go meet with Max. Obviously, Kaden's costume is made of inward-facing solar panels. That tracks.
I really do think that that's part of it, like the whole like psyching herself up. I think that she has to like hype herself up and psych herself up to go out every time because I think she's just like this really defeated person. Like
Yeah,
she's
it like
really
feels
pathetic,
worthless
really.
to her. She's I'm not gonna defend her. She's a little pathetic. Phil says, I love Victoria and Worm too. I thought she was a great character, if a bit nuts.
Oh hell yeah. Um
Um,
yeah.
she mentions that in all but one tussle with Lung and Oni Lee, they had been the ones to retreat. So we know now about how strong she is. A little less strong than Taylor.
Exactly.
Didn't Taylor didn't let Lung retreat, okay?
Taylor doesn't run. These Taylors don't run.
Um,
Anyway, sorry.
She mentions that at one point Lung had set an unspecified trap for Kaden that left her recuperating for 2 months. That seems rough, and I like wonder what that was.
Well, I thought either maybe he like crunched one of her limbs or like she got just straight up shot.
Yeah, maybe shot with a gun. But somehow worse, she mentions are the days that she feels like she's completely failing to change things. And that's been this week. She had taken vacation days off when she, which is just like so cringe for some reason. She like put in all her PTO, when she learned that Lung had been apprehended.
Again, loser.
Like a fucking loser. She said, quoted here. Hold on, let me cough real quick. I probably got that illness that everyone at work got. Um, she says, "Get that scum out of her city," while they were leaderless. Like, oof, okay. But now she's on her fifth of her 7 vacation days, and she has not accomplished anything. The ABB has become more active and more organized than ever. she doesn't really think about why. She's just like, "Oh, I guess they figured it."
I guess they got really good at this while Lung was gone. He must have been
Yeah,
such a bad
she's
leader
not
that
like,
he
"I
had
wonder if someone else is leading them. Is Oni Lee a better leader or
Oni
whatever?" They
leader.
already know about Bakuda at this point, and well, they know very vaguely about her. They don't even know, like, kind of
I'm not sure if the other villains know yet. Like, I don't know if they
they
know.
they don't do their
Because,
research
well,
like Taylor does.
like, Taylor didn't know, and it was public information. You know what I mean?
She knew, didn't she? She said she researched it and there were 3 powered people,
Arms
and
Master
it
had
was
to tell her about Bakuda.
mm,
Yeah, and then she
okay.
researched her the next day at school
Oh,
on Monday.
yeah.
On that the
Okay,
day
yeah, and
Monday.
then she was like, "I shouldn't watch this bombing video in school."
Yeah.
Um, I remember that, okay. Um, Normally Kaden would be resurrecting her old alliances to help get things going again, but the people she's been contacting have been like giving her lukewarm responses, if any. Do you want to read this quote out?
Yes. But first, to alleviate Vale, it oh, and to go back to a different comment I didn't see. 2 plus 4 times 5 said, I didn't love Victoria, but I did respect her. And then Vale said, PTO to go fight the almost but not quite good fight. The one thing I felt in common when I take PTO to fight crime, I usually don't end up actually cleaning up my house.
That
Um,
I do that too. I'll take a little bit of time off and then I'm like, oh, it's gone. And I didn't do anything I was supposed to.
yeah, the Cornell bombing was certainly in the news, but it's probably not public that Bakuda joined Lung at this point. It was on Parahumans Online when she checked at the beginning of this week, so 5 days ago when Taylor was doing the research.
Oh,
Um,
well, she
Sorry,
should have
I'm just like a
probably
psycho,
researched it.
so I
That's
think about
okay,
this a
that's
lot.
okay. She should have Kaden should have also researched it 5 days ago, which was the start of her PTO.
Exactly. Um, anyway, um, Max, Theo's father, was to blame for that. Just as she'd left him, or just as she'd left his, yeah. Ugh, I'm gonna start over. Max, Theo's father, was to blame for that. Just as she'd left his team a more broken person than she'd been when she joined, others had gone through the same experience. With charisma and a keen sense of people, Max had convinced people from across the country to join his team. Just as easily, he'd tore them apart without them realizing he was doing it. Confidence broken, racked by doubts, paranoid regarding anybody except the one man that had caused the paranoia in the first place. They'd splintered off from the team. Not that Max minded. There were always a fresh supply of bright eyed recruits ready to replace anyone he broke.
Um, I don't like that she called him Max, Theo's father. Like she's also your baby daddy, but okay, Kaden.
Yeah.
She like seemingly like has a big separate like she does not consider Max to be Aster's father in any way.
Well, like many
Um,
things in this world, she's able to just sort of put that in a little box and not think about it.
yeah, and that one's fine. Aster doesn't need that shithead, so um
Mm-hmm.
Kaden decides that if she's going to make any headway with the ABE before her PTO runs out, she's going to have to make a deal with the devil. Like, I don't know what she's talking about here either. Like, she has like 2 days. This is day 5 of 7. So,
Yeah.
like, you think you can do? I don't know. Maybe. I guess things in Worm do move a lot faster than they do in my life. But
I think she's just like she's basically like I have until the ABB get lung back or whatever to stop them.
uh,
So I have to attack now, no matter what. I think that's her kind of thing. And yeah, I think just super unrealistic to be like, we'll be able to do this in 2 days because they haven't been able to defeat the ABB in like a consistent many years.
Yeah, they've never been able to beat them.
I mean,
Um,
these guys are a bunch of fucking clowns too. They're just like endlessly fighting along, and they never ever defeat.
P plus 4 times 5 says, fun fact, max is short for maximum asshole.
That's why I
Good,
started laughing while you were reading.
good one. Um, so Caden's ex-husband Max is working late in an office building that Caden flies to the window of. As far as I could tell, this was his office building. Do
Yeah,
you
this
think
is the
that's
med hall
fair?
building. Because
Okay.
he owns Med Hall, which is like a
Okay.
major because they talked at the beginning of the story about how they became like a technology and banking hub, and
Mm-hmm.
so Med Hall is a medical supply company, but I also think that they do like medical research. So they are um
Eugenics.
oh my god, probably
Oh my God.
they're
Probably.
probably in the whole technology boom type space, you know.
Gotcha. Um, 2 plus 4 times 5 said, to be fair, the AVP did have lung for all those years, and now they don't. Um, yeah, but they got something better than lung right now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I love Bakura, so I'm excited for that.
It's funny because you didn't
Um,
really talk about that on your first read through. I don't
I
remember
know.
you specifically
I think
like
I was
mentioning
just like
Bakuda
so
much.
shook by her character at first because of like the visuals of. Well, we won't get into it. We'll get into it when we do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, So she flies to the window of his building, and she's annoyed that he's so good looking, even at 5 years older than her. Which I'm gonna review our timeline a little later on. Max waits for Caden to ask to come in as some sort of power play, but then when Caden goes to knock on the window, he opens it, which is like such a dick move. He doesn't even let her like knock.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, he's like a total piece of shit. I don't know if I
and
captured
he's
it
like
well enough,
just
but I'm just gonna rant
smiling at
about
her.
him at the character in the character section. I
Oh
fucking
yeah,
know people like this.
I
I
know.
fucking hate people like this. They're like the
He's
worst people to interact with. The
he's such
biggest
a
pieces
shithead.
of shit.
So Kaden enters and she lets her power fade. Max greets her and turns on a light through his computer, which Kaden thanks him for as it allows her to recharge. Max asks about, I quoted quote unquote our daughter because I feel like he's saying that to be a prick as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, Aster's well, she said, as calmly as possible as her heartbeat pounded in her ears. She knew he didn't really care. He was letting her know that he hadn't forgotten about Aster, reminding her that he, at any time, any moment, could take custody of her baby girl. He had the money, he had the contacts. She'd be helpless to stop him. So that's kind of sad for
It's
Kaden, I
sad,
guess.
but all too real.
Yeah.
A
I
distant
mean,
father who doesn't want anything to do with their child, who is also lording the opportunity to steal them away from the mother. I mean, I feel
yeah.
like that definitely happens in real life.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's got crazy money. Um, and I don't think that they like she doesn't seem to be poor, but she does live in an apartment. Is that like judgy to say that like living in an apartment is bad?
Well, I don't.
It kind of depends on the
I
apartment, I
I think
guess.
that well, one, it's a big city, you know, and we're not really from a big city at all.
Yeah, that's true.
And then two, like I don't know. She's a single mother, so I think she just has like a regular amount of money and a regular job, and she's able to get by. But like, she needs to take PTO. She still has to have like a regular job and get the income from it. Whereas Max is a fucking like owner of a corporation, and he can just like, I mean, he just has lawyers on retainer. Yeah.
Yeah. What a shithead.
I think the chat must be appeased here. We've got a few good ones. Um, to be fair, the ABB did have Lung for all those years, and now they don't. So I can see why other supervillains or other villains would be like, "OMG, now's our chance." And then Vale said, Max is the closest thing we've seen to a movie villain. 2 plus 4 times 5 said Caden's effectively a single mom. So, you just said that, lol. Vale said, you could see him having a lair and laser torture devices. I agree.
I'm sure he does. But, Max gives major the guy from Christian, I think Christian from
Christian
50
Grey.
Shades of Grey
Yeah,
energy.
definitely. He's a total
Like
Christian Grey.
he's oh my God. Now I can't unsee it. He's got sex genes, just like Christian J.
uh,
Um
Gross. I was just thinking of how they're both like, I don't know, like Caden, and then in the other story, whatever Bella replacement character it is for Christian Grey,
yeah.
um, they're both like, oh, he's so hot, and it's like every
Yeah,
little thing they say about him
they're like
makes my
little
fucking skin crawl.
they're like little mousy uh 18-year-olds too. Oh my gosh, there's too many similarities. Do you think that 50 Shades was actually based off of Max and Caden?
Yes, definitely.
Max is playing for his laser torture device, recruiting purity. True. So Max lets on that he knows that Theo's babysitting, and it's good for him to have some female influences in his life. This is the closest thing we get to misogyny, honestly, from these fellas. Um, I thought it was fine though. Like it's probably true.
I think
Kaden,
so, but I was gonna mention a minute ago. I had this weird thought that I feel like Empire 88 would be way stronger if they had a tinker, but they're the kind of like toxic organization who would be like, being a tinker is weak. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
that's
they're just
true.
such dumb fucking assholes that they would like get rid of resources like that.
So Kaden dropped some context internally that she worked with Max for 10 years and that they were married for one. She sees this interaction as a negotiation where she thinks other people would see it as like really innocent. But she sees like he's doing her a favor and expects one back. But he was doing it in a way that she couldn't confront. I totally found this so relatable. Like so many times, even just like in our day to day at work, people do this like slime ball stuff where there's no way you can confront it because you would sound like an insane person if they denied it. Um, you know what I mean?
I absolutely agree. Like, I'm sure there are more like there are also like, I don't know, interpersonal cases. I'm sure I could pull out, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, same.
at work it's like fucking constant. We are in like a constant state of siege by other like departments and stuff being like shitty and like trying to like put work in our lap and stuff.
Yeah, like weird power plays like this. But yeah, I've definitely experienced the same thing like in my like personal life or whatever. Um she just I just quoted here, if she called him out on it, he'd play innocent and she'd look like the crazy one in the wrong, sometimes even to herself. So, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
typical gaslighter behavior.
I was gonna say Max is a
Max
real girl boss.
Max is like super, yeah, he's a big gaslighter. He seems super emotionally abusive and stuff. Like I just think like even that timeline, they worked together for 10 years. I have no idea how much of that was a relationship and then only married for one. When I see that, like a very long relationship leading up to a very, very brief marriage, it's like, oh, they were waiting to like really be their true selves when the other person couldn't get away. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. And I mean, there's other stuff too. Like, she thought he was like a hot older boy when she was in middle school and he
Hmm.
was in high school. And they're like 5 years apart ish. And she's like 29 now and he's like 34. But when they met, I think she became a cape when she was like 16. So when they met, it
Yeah.
was like 16 to 21. And
Yeah,
then,
exactly. We can talk about that because she did trigger when she was 16, and then and then when she started going out. So even if we like give her 1 year to like start going out, there's still a 5-year age gap. That's
Yeah.
still 17 to 22
Well, okay, so
together for 10 years.
the one
Go
thing I
ahead.
can say is I don't know. I'm not sure if they were dating early on or not. I do know that Kaiser was with Heath, who is Theo's mother, until she was killed by the teeth.
Hmm.
Heath was killed by the teeth. Um,
He also, though, at that point, hanging out with the 17-year-old, and then he has his
yeah, I mean that's
one
the
or
thing is,
2-year-old son.
yeah, he has like a kid as a teenager, because if we think about it, or I guess he maybe was like 19, but
Yeah,
basically
young
he
adult.
he gets somebody like pregnant when he's 19 or 20, and then like kind of, I don't know, it just seems like he moves through women, like Fenya and Menya are Heath's cousins, and I get the impression that he's having sex with both of the twins. um
Yeah, he's got that impression too.
yeah, so it's kind of like fucking weird to be having sex with like your son's mom's, like dead mom's cousins. I don't know. That's weird to me.
Yeah, he definitely got like a cult thing going on where he just kind of like rotates through them. I don't know.
Yeah, he sucks.
He's Max sucks.
T-
Caden's right that Max sucks, but like, come on, Caden.
Maybe she should also suck less.
Yeah, maybe she should also suck less. It's like hard because of like how aware she is about these aspects that suck, but like
I'm
just
sure he's
can't.
fine, even though I know he's evil, and I'm the one who's saying that.
Well, but it's also like in herself where she's like, ugh, I know I'm racist, but I don't wanna be. It's your fault. But like, try harder then.
Try harder.
Jesus. You can't just acknowledge that something's. I have this problem with so many people. Especially have this problem with TV shows where they'll acknowledge something problematic about themselves, and because they acknowledged it, they're like, "All right, we can move on now."
Yeah.
No, you have to fix it. So Caden fibs a bit and says the ABB is lacking leadership and she wants to take them down before they regroup. I said that this was a fib because uh, she's not she's not being totally honest about the fact that they are not needing to regroup. Like they're doing better than ever. So um,
Yeah,
it
so it's
just
like, even if that was her initial motivation to take the time off, it's like the whole strike while the iron is hot thing, the iron wasn't hot. Like,
yeah.
and you
You
struck at it
thought it
five
was, and then it
times.
wasn't.
And yeah. So
Um,
yeah, it's more like just gotta get the old team back together. Or a new like shuffle team. I don't know. I
two
wanted to
plus
address
four
the
times.
chat real
Yeah,
quick.
go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, 2 + 4 × 5 saying lol, yeah, it's how all the Klingon scientists get bullied 24/7. And then to the same thing, Vale says E88 calls thinkers nerds, or tinkers nerds, and do all the 7th grade bullying thing. And then 2 + 4 × 5 gave us a uh, gaslighting emoji set, which I never would have made the connection to. I feel like I'm being gaslit into believing that this is gaslighting emojis. And then Vale said, engine light on. It's the one thing to notice. It's another thing to fix the engine.
Yeah. Cadence engine light is on actually. Um, Max prompts her to say that she can't do it without that she can't do it without his help, because he's a perv. And then when she agrees, he dismisses her and opens the window so that she can make her exit.
It's very
But Caden,
Christian Grey in this moment,
it's
actually.
so this is
Once
so
we said it,
Christian
I'm like,
Grey.
oh god, it's real. Oh no.
Um, Kaden tries to persist, though. She says, I've talked to the others, but nobody that's worked for you is willing to be the first to join me. Some say they're worried they'll offend you. Others are just spooked, or they've already given up. They ask me, why would a group of your rejects do any better than they'd managed as a part of your team? Which is like, it it is sad that like he did manage to break them this much, and Caden seems to think that they don't even know. Like they don't even know that they've been abused. Um, I don't know. Maybe
Well,
they
clearly
do.
they still
They're
rejoin
white
him, so it's
supremacists,
like
so they're yeah,
it's like
that's
almost
true.
regardless of the other stuff, they are willing to follow him.
But I'm sure that they don't have the best mm, like emotional intelligence in the
Yeah,
first place.
I mean, if you think to when we see from like fucking Justin's perspective, Crusader, like
Yeah.
he's such a fucking dumbass. God, I hate that guy.
Yeah, we hate Crusader.
Yeah. Anyway,
Um, in response to the gaslit about gaslighting emojis thing, I just laughed so hard that my dog woke up and came over to see if I'm okay. Wow, good one, William.
nice, nice.
Um, Max is all like, "Well, what's in it for me?" And Caden's like, "If the ABB would be gone,"
He's such
which
a
is,
piece of shit right now, and he's like, not good enough. What's the
yeah,
stupid quote?
he exactly. He's like, not good enough. And then Max says he wants her to be on his team again, which she immediately declines without even thinking because she hates him. But Max says that she'll be his second in command and she's going to form a team to work. He's going to form a team to work under her. She'll be totally independent. um, you double check with me on anything you did, but other than that, you'd be completely autonomous, free to use your team as you see fit. Other than that, she thought, as if it was inconsequential to be checking in with him on every move she made. I don't agree with the way you do things. I don't want to be associated with you. Which is and it's just the same thing. Like she's got all the ingredients, but she just can't make it there.
Yeah.
She knows that this sucks. She knows this is a horrible idea.
I mean, yeah, I don't even know. I don't think that she could. For all the people who think that she's like just on the edge, like teetering on the edge of being good, it's like she's so far into the camp of being like a racist shithead that she like can't even imagine a world like she's the fish that swims in the racist waters and can't see them. Um, like I don't know. She to me, she's like pretty far gone and probably after like some of the stuff she does in the story in a bit like irredeemable.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
I get that like that's pretty harsh, but just like what I mean by that is I don't think that she could ever circle herself around. I don't think she would
yeah.
ever become a good person.
I don't think she'd be able to do it. Unless maybe she had a man helping her out there. Um, somebody like to influence her in some way. I don't think she can do it on her own, which just is lame. I'm skipping 2 plus 4 times 5's comment because I hate it. And Vale said this chapter is really well written, not saying it isn't, but I think it's my least favorite chapter out of the whole 300-ish. I just dislike how gross it feels. But Vale, think about Crusaders
Yeah, I was gonna say
chapter.
we have two others that I think are like distinctly worse to me, which are the Crusader and Hook Wolf
I
chapters.
feel like the Hook Wolf chapter is so boring that I don't even like care about it.
Mm, mm.
And like that's not an insult to Wildbow because it's like, yeah, some racist people are just boring because they don't have like any sense of identity or anything.
I could be a
Um,
Roman.
yeah, he's like, oh yeah, I'm a Roman soldier because somebody said it to me once. Shut up, dude. Um, but yeah, Crusader sucks ass. Um,
And yeah, Crusader in particular, like it feels fucking gross to be in his head.
yeah.
Yeah.
A shock collar might help. Max laughs at her here and reminds her that she's already associated with him and that she'll be working to change that for decades with no effect. Max says that they share the same goals to clean up this filthy world of ours. Um, I mean, if she like changed her name, that's like step number one. If she just changed her name from Purity and like had a different shtick, oh, I think she'd be miles ahead of where she is right now, you know? That can't, and that's not that hard. Like when we first see that happening in Worm, I was like, yeah, right. Like people are gonna respect that or whatever. But they do. They like do pretty well at not like most people call them their new name exclusively and like respect the fact that they are rebranding themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
At least the capes do. So she could like 1000% do a rebrand
Yeah,
and
this is
go
a
from there.
universe where rebranding works.
Yeah, it's like people I wouldn't call it dead naming or whatever, but like just for the term or whatever. People are not they don't really like go around dead naming capes all the time.
Yeah, even like
Um
Victoria in Ward, there's this moment where she's going to interact with a cape from the first story here, let's say, and she's like trying to make sure she says the right name because she's like when this person was a hero, they were named and she's thinking about that and doesn't like the new name very much.
oh yeah.
Which I mean really it's just like I don't like that she's a villain now.
Yeah. God, she's
Yeah, she's such a spaz.
such a
I know.
goody two shoes. 2 plus 4 times 5 says my least favorite chapter is probably the one of the end of arc 25, not the interlude. And even that one is objectively pretty good. I don't know which one they're referring to.
That is the one. Do you remember the little um when Taylor um how to say
You don't have
this?
to tell me, it's okay.
Uh that's the arc with Konsu in it.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
it's the end of that arc.
Um, and then it's like all sped up. Okay, that's fine. Fail says, I agree with both, but this one tricked me reading the first time, not knowing what I was reading. Oh, I understand. Okay. People are allowed to change and it's respective, but they have to be the ones to do it. Yeah, I thought we could talk about like the misleadingness of this chapter, I guess, at the end and what
Hmm.
everybody thinks about
Yeah.
it. And we know Vale hates it, so um, um, the Caden argues that the way that he's cleaning up this world is with drugs, stealing, and extortion, Jesus. Um, Caden thinks that doesn't make any sense, which she's right, but take it a step further, Caden. Max argues that money and power is the leverage he needs to affect things, but Caden has heard this all before. I pulled a quote here. He changed tactics. Let me ask you, would you rather be doing things your way, failing to change things, or would you rather work under me and make a difference? I am making a difference, Caden answered. I'm working to make this world a better place. Of course, he replied, and she didn't miss the hint of condescension in his voice. You left my team to go do good work. It's just pure coincidence that it's black, brown, or yellow criminals you target. Whoa, plot twist. Caden's a white supremacist?
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it. Oh my God. Um, I was trying to reflect back onto my thoughts when I was first reading this chapter, but I could not remember it at all. And I don't think I was like surprised because, you know.
The way that she frames herself at the start, I definitely did think that she was a hero initially.
Yeah,
Um,
she does come off as a hero
because she's
because
just
of
talking about, because it's like the Empire 88 like she doesn't mention them or Coil's people or whatever. She's just talking about the ABB. But from our standpoint, like the ABB are some of the only people that we've fought so far in the story.
Uh-huh.
So it's like the fact that she would see them specifically as the criminals she was trying to defeat, and like the whole like, oh, defeat them while Lung is out of the picture kind of thing. Um,
Hmm.
and we don't hear her cape name until way later. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. Vale said, probably Taylor watching a video. Kaden earlier reminisced about breaking ABV members' bones to send a message. She's just the worst. Sigma says, no, no, and not a white supremacist. Just just friends with all the white supremacists. So obviously she can't beat them up. Yeah. Um, so Caden argues that it's hard to avoid this when his gang's the only notable white gang, and it's made up of her former friends.
Yeah,
Um,
I pulled out of the thing. I had this in the characters section, but she described or no, where did I put it? Somewhere on here I had the buddies line, which I thought was really funny. Oh, I guess I didn't copy it over to the thing, but I'll read it out of the chapter. It was from earlier. She had hunted down old buddies, contacts, and teammates 3 days ago. So
yeah,
Empire 88 members like Fog and Knight are old buddies.
old buddies. And she's
Like
like,
fucking
how am I
serial
supposed
killers.
to beat up people that I've went out to drinks with? Okay, Caden. Go to a fucking different town or something. Like literally,
Such a
we will
psycho.
not spoilies, but this is spoilies. So there's a character later who rebrands themselves and used to be a villain. So they just go to a different town. They just go work somewhere else because that makes sense. Because it's
Yeah.
just I understand that things get complicated. Um,
Hmm.
I guess. But like do
Like
something
even when
different.
somebody like leaves a corporate hero team to go to like the protectorate, they usually leave the city they're in to be in a different protectorate city.
Yeah, because it's fucking weird.
Yeah.
So they just figure it out and there's like lots of places to work. Um,
Yeah, like if you wanted
yeah,
to be just a generic good guy or whatever, you could, I don't know, go to New York and vigilante fight some of the villains there, or go to fucking Boston, like really nearby places with a jillion villains.
yeah. I'm gonna pull this quote and nobody clip it because I am quoting something racist, okay? It's amusing to hear you try and justify your perspective, but you're ignoring the elephant in the room. Cut the BS and tell me you don't feel something different when you look at a black face compared to when you look at a white one. I wanted to pull that because I didn't. I was like, summarizing it just doesn't have the same effect. Like
Yeah, it's
Max
so
and
stark.
Kaden, you guys suck so bad, and Kaden's like she's speechless because he's right, which, oh, dude.
Yeah, she just doesn't have anything to rebut that with.
Because, yeah, so it's like revealed that she knew and had a crush on Max when he was in high school. She was in middle school at this point. And then he approached her when she got powers. Um, and she'd been pulled into his way of thinking. So yeah, like I don't know, we talked about this, but once we like clarified that the age gap and the age that she was approached, like definitely groomed. So yeah, that's what makes it difficult is she's like correct in that aspect. Like she was groomed um in multiple ways, like to be a fucking white supremacist and also like to be in some sort of relationship with him, it seems like. But and she's aware of that and she can't fix it still. So obviously she was predisposed to the white supremacy in some aspect.
Yeah, and like this quote, blinded by his good looks and his way with words, she'd been swayed, convinced of his way of thinking. Come on.
Ooh,
Come the fuck on.
that's all it takes.
Ooh. Yeah, embarrassing. Caden is like heavy cringe. But
God. Okay, let me read these. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, oh, I also sped through this chapter on my first read, mostly because it was between 4.6 and 4.7. No, it's not. And I really wanted to get back to that storyline. Vale says, I know it's hard to have nuance in chat/text. I don't hate this chapter. It just notably stood out for how much I dislike the transition of being in Caden's thoughts, then realizing her race. Yeah, you're like, oh no, I've been like empathizing with this woman this whole time and she
Well,
sucks.
I think it's also
I get
like
that.
it is written that way because like she's so sad and pathetic at the beginning, and then like when you don't know that they're talking Empire 88, when you just hear her thoughts before she enters the building, it's like Max was Theo's father, not Max is the leader of the criminal white supremacist.
Yeah,
She's like the
she
way she
thinks
thinks
of it
about
very
stuff is
casually.
so compartmentalized. It's just so specific that like she avoids all the negative aspects.
Um, Wow, racism on stream? That's illegal. I know, please. Max probably has a mind control power, but it only works on racists. Bill said she fought alongside them for a decade. It wasn't a moment of flashy smiles and words. Yeah,
Yeah, it just seems
I don't
insane
know.
to me that she's like, I don't know why they think I'm associated with you. I only worked for you
We
for
just
10 years.
worked together for 10 years and I haven't changed my name since then. I haven't changed the people I target. I haven't really changed anything. Um, so
Yeah.
I pull a lot of quotes near
I'm
the
fine
end
with that,
because I
yeah.
feel like it just gets so dense at one point that I'm like, I can't summarize this. So she tried to change her outlook since the divorce, but she had seen a great deal in her 10 years as a member of his team. It was impossible to look at the city now and ignore the fact that too much of what made it an uglier place to live and raise a child in could be traced back to the same kinds of people. Sure, the whites had criminals too, but at least they were fucking civilized about it.
Just like
And
open racism.
as we learn even more context about the city and stuff, the whites are
Are fucking
not.
demons. Some of the
They're
people like
like,
we're gonna throw the hot dogs that are poisoned so that your dogs eat them,
yeah,
and then
they
we'll
throw
shoot at
poison.
you.
They throw poisoned hot dogs at Rachel's dogs. Like they're not they're not in some like organized crime ring or whatever that she has convinced herself that they are. Like it's just terrible.
Yeah, like a
um
bunch of fucking dipshits. Ugh. Like they make the ABB seem like slightly reasonable. You're like, okay, these
literally
guys are
like
real fucking assholes, but
the
they're not
E88 and
E88.
the merchants like blend in my mind because of like how just disgusting they both are. um
Yeah, I don't
because
think
they
that the
both give me
merchants
Trump
are.
supporter
Yeah, well, for
vibes.
sure, for sure. They're both like different forms of extreme conservatism kind of thing, but like,
Yeah.
but the merchants don't care so much about race. They're just like take. They're just like a
Yeah. Yeah,
kleptocracy.
they're not a racial gang or whatever, but they just give the same vibes. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Vale says at least they're civilized. She goes around breaking bones. Brockton Bay must be one of the worst places to live in the USA. I think we like learn later on like how fucked this world is just because of the sheer amount of powers and like how things just kind of domino effect. And like the fucking the big guys, the friend bringers and stuff.
I think the only
Um
thing is that if you luck out and live in a small enough place that happens to not have a parahuman, you're fine. But like literally a parahuman could trigger at any point.
yeah, it's just
You have to
not a
actually
great
take care of your
environment.
citizens, and then you won't have an outbreak of parahumans.
Oh, also her mentioning that they're civilized about it when she's like, I want to stop the drugs and the extortion. And then she's like, Max does drugs and extortion.
In
And
a
also, the
civilized way.
E88 is the only notable gang. She's just not, she's not connecting the dots here.
She's
Um,
Oh,
Oh,
no, they're a psychedelocracy. Oh, damn it. Sorry, I got like roped into reading 2 + 4 × 5's comment in a very rapt way, and then I was
okay.
just getting duped. Whoever has the most drugs is in charge. Um, sorry. Uh,
That's true. Um, so Max feels her silence is proof of their similar perspective. Probably true. Um, his deal is that if Kaden joins his team, and if she's not happy with how things are going in a year's time, then she will inherit the Empire 88 and he will become second in command. And whatever she wants to do with it is in her own right. She can fucking sell it or make him a humanitarian effort or keep doing everything that he taught her to do.
oh no, it turns out she's doing it exactly the same as he did it. It turns
Back in
out
the
she
same
was a
way.
racist.
It
Um,
turns out. And
oh,
Caden's like, "Whoa, Max wouldn't break his word on this." And she calls it a booby prize. What the fuck is a booby prize?
that's a pretty common term. It's like the goat on that 3 door on the Monty Hall game. It's any shitty prize. It's like if you're going for weapons and you all get a random weapon and yours is a paper fan and somebody else gets a machine gun. And it's not like Super Smash Brothers or something. It's a real paper fan and a real machine gun. Then you got the
Okay.
booby prize because the paper fan is not very useful in that situation. So, you know.
Okay. That's a, it's just I had never heard such a thing. Must be a Canadian thing. Um,
Oh,
Kate, go
sorry,
ahead.
before I
Oh,
forget again, because I keep like remembering and forgetting in like a cycle over and over. It's that when Caden is thinking how could he clean up the world by putting more like drugs into it, it's amazing that she never questions the idea that he's like telling the truth about his motives in the first place. She never questions the idea that he wants a better world or whatever.
yeah.
And it's like incredible because like what is the logical like end state of what he wants? It's just like a narrowing and narrowing and narrowing into nothing of like society and humanity.
She must have the idea that like her since she like wants a better world or whatever that anyone that she respects because she does respect him even though she hates him like is just has the same ideas as her
Yeah,
and anyone she doesn't respect doesn't want a better world and like that makes it easier to justify her hate.
it sort of reminded me of something I've seen in real life too, of people just sort of being able to justify, like, well, I don't want bad things to happen, so it's fine. Like, I don't have to question this person's obvious, like, moral compromises because I want the best for everything.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to be okay.
I just want everyone to be happy. um Kaden is like immediately drawn into this. She starts asking questions. Um, Even though she mentions she knows Max is targeting her weakness for his advantage. Oh.
Hmm.
Um, so I ask you again, Kaden, do you want to spend your time failing to make a name for yourself on your own, or are you willing to join me in actually changing things? Come with me, and I guarantee you win one way or another. Her eyes lit up, and her hair began to turn white from the roots outward. In moments, she was her radiant alter ego, Purity.
I think her
Um,
eyes just lit up in the normal sense before they lit up in the power sense.
I
She was
think they
like,
lit up and then
"A
they lit up.
boy."
She's like, yeah, so Caden's name is Purity. Max begins displaying his powers as well. He picks up a letter opener and he lets the metal branch out from it and encompass him in like a suit, and he gives himself a crown. And which that part I was like, ugh. And you know what? Christian Grey. Um, this is just like the contract. Oh my God.
Oh my
Um,
god.
Purity accepts his deal. with an apology to Aster, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing this for you.
Forgive me, Aster, she
Forgive
thought.
me.
I'm doing this for you,
It's your fault." Oh, that just reminds
little
me. Okay,
baby.
we'll do an intermission where I talk about
Mhm.
the ultimatum real quick.
Yeah.
There's a couple. So the plot is it's monogamous people swinging. So you quote unquote break up with your partner and you go to live with somebody of your they both choose each other. So somebody of your choosing for 3 weeks or something like that.
Mhm, mhm.
And one of the guys ended up with a girl that he didn't really like, but he like still wanted to participate in. He was the one who gave the ultimatum, so he's the one who wanted to get married. And so since they weren't like really into each other, he ended up cheating on well, he hooked up with somebody at a club instead.
Oh my
And then
god.
when his, his fiance confronts him about it, he was like, "I did it for you." Like, he's like, "I am sorry, like, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to, but, like,
I thought I was only
you
cheating on
wanted."
her, babe.
He No, he was like, "I thought you would want me to have the full experience of the show, so I did it for you." And she was
He's
like,
such a
"What the
fucking
fuck?"
moron. Like, oh, well, we definitely wouldn't have discussed it before.
She's like, "I didn't want you to do that." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I had known that before I did it."
Asshole.
Um, and then they get engaged and get pregnant. So,
Babe,
I
I'm
fucking
doing
hate
this
it so
for
much. I
you.
did it for you. So it's like does something super shitty and then you're like Aster's oh yeah, if Aster grows up, Aster's gonna grow up and she's gonna be like, "What the fuck, mom?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted me to."
It's gonna be that really shitty YouTube sketch where she just keeps going, I made this for you. Yeah.
Sigma, you can't say that. Sigma's threatening to kill toddlers.
Oh my
Um,
god.
Hold on. People were talking about boobies in here. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, "Oh, like how booby trap is a crappy trap." Vale says, "The word has been used to mean dunce or nincompoop since at least the late 16th century, and that's the booby of booby prize and booby trap. The word probably derives from the Spanish word bobo." You're
Nice.
so intelligent. But Vale, you know what? Nincompoop hasn't existed since the 16th century, so gotcha there. Um,
Great reasoning.
2 plus 4 times 5 says, "Is that why that species of bird is called the blue-footed booby? If so, then why are those other birds called great tits?"
Yeah.
Um, Sigma says, "What I'm hearing is that Aster is responsible for all these racists. Someone should kill that baby." I would fucking murder Aster too.
A lot of
She,
people do it.
yeah. Um, all right. Good intermission.
So, do we want to talk about the timeline of their relationship anymore, or
I
their
think we covered it pretty
dynamic?
well.
Okay.
So Caden knew him when she was 13 or younger. And then 3 or 4 years
I
later,
think like
they started
13
working
to
together.
14 actually, because didn't she say middle school?
Yeah, she said middle school, but he was in high school, so he has to be less than 18.
Yeah, so he was less than 18. Okay, you're right. So if
So
she was like,
she's
yeah,
like 12.
damn. She would
So
have to be
she's like
like,
a sixth grader.
god damn. She's like,
That's so fucked.
that senior is so hot.
That senior is so hot. Like, okay, I copy pasted it. Oh, Vale. Yeah, whatever. Try to defend yourself. You copy pasted it from where? The 1600s? I don't know if that's actually true. I just heard that nincompoop was some guy's name. And
Well,
then
Nimrod was, I think, is a great insult. I am
maybe
of
that's
course
what I'm thinking of. I'm
I'm of
thinking
course
about
not a
Nimrod.
yeah. I'm
You're
not
right, you're
a
right.
not a believer myself, but I think it's hilarious that we have a an insult that means idiot that's just like you dude who people accuse of being the antichrist in biblical
Yeah.
mythology. It's like so
Vale
specific.
Vale, I'm so sorry for trying to actually you. Please forgive me.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so she's like 12 when she meets him, and then and then 3 or 4 years later they start working together. And then they get married for 11 months. It's dropped. She gets pregnant at some point during that, has Aster, which I wonder if like that's what gave her the courage to leave or whatever, was just having the baby, like getting pregnant. She's like, fuck, I don't want this kid to turn out like Theo. Leaves the relationship.
I mean,
But
that would
it's
make
still,
sense to me.
yeah, it's still all buddy buddy with like obviously calls him as like, hey, can Theo babysit? Which is like good for Theo, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know, it's complicated because of like I don't think Theo is like a great big fan of his and Caden's relationship, but it actually is a reprieve from like the abuse at home.
Yeah. I mean, it's the. I think I make fun of Theo a little bit for being a sad boy, but one of the things I
Aw,
said in
you're
his
so
part,
mean. I love Theo.
one of the things I said is, I think I deleted this. I think I reworked it, but essentially I was gonna say that like he was just like so happy to even have one night away from his father.
Dude, the fucking note you left at the bottom of this document that's in size 72 font.
I wanted to remember. This way I can like make it part of my process.
It just startled me. It was like a jump scare. Okay. We can start the character overview.
Okay. So uh and I guess we can do this in Caden's section since she's the main perspective. I was going to ask if we wanted to talk all more about what we had mentioned at the start, the like weird way that she thinks with really specific coded language that has a racial
Yeah.
history. But I will read my little blurb about her first. I'm
Okay.
glad we get to see from Caden's perspective. It's a good foil to Taylor's to be able to see someone
Foil.
with a super twisted worldview who's able to justify all their actions to themselves. I don't know how she did it for 10 years that she worked for Kaiser, but now that she has Aster, she need look no further. Caden thinks about how she needs to clean up the city and tells herself that she's doing it for Aster. And I think this chapter has a great. Oh, I even said. I'm so dumb. I wrote this on the blurb. I think this chapter has a great use of word choice throughout to display Caden's way of thinking. Aside from the obvious stuff like thinking, sure, the whites had criminals too, but at least they were fucking civilized about it.
It's
Um,
so bad.
yeah, it's terrible. There are tons of small stuff in the word choices. Like when she talks about Aster, just like Vic had mentioned, it's Aster was perfect, flawless, untainted. And I know that it goes on to say by the chaos of the outside world, but I think untainted is a pretty hmm,
Uh,
yeah. Um someone I think you were being accused of hiding from Vale's continued battle. Not quite clear. Something made Vale
oh.
said sad hiding. Um And then 2 plus 4 times 5 said how to pull off a jump scare using only text. Use 72-point font. Take notes, Wildbow.
Use size 666 font. That's the real way.
Exactly. Um, but yeah. Do you want to like? I know that the word like she's called purity. The Kaiser uses the word uh, uh pure somewhere. Let me think. Pure, where is it? He says it's just pure coincidence that when he's about to describe his her racist actions.
Yeah.
Um,
They talk about clean and filth and scum and all that. Just
yeah. The way
oh,
that the language that they use there is very like
Yeah, I'll have
obvious
to,
choice.
like, think about it because I've never noticed that from Taylor, but it's definitely more here. I wanna see, like, if I notice any of that from Taylor in the upcoming chapters.
I
I guess
think
the interactive chapters.
Well, what I was gonna say is I think that like honestly, Taylor's worst moment is like 1.3 when she's like first going out to the docks, and then it's
Mhm.
when she first
Oh, and she
sees
calls
the
them
ABB.
crack whores.
Yeah, she's like
Oh,
talking about the crack whores and the drunks who are passed out on the street and the whores, and like just the way that she thinks about them is very
yeah,
dismissive and
it's
like
so, like, uh, I don't know, she's just looking so much down on them, it's very sad.
it
And
doesn't
then later
feel
on when
like
she
racially
sees
coded the
she's
way
like
Caden does though.
yeah, later on she's like, "Oh, there were normal people in the docks too," and then she like talks about them or whatever. And there's like a girl with her boyfriend who's an artist and stuff like that. And ever since then, she kind of got over it. So I think
Yeah,
she's just it was just something new for her that I wonder where she was getting that perspective from, really, because I mean Danny's definitely not like that. He's hanging out with like some people who are like very fairly different from him, you know?
people who are the kind of like descriptors, like negative descriptors that probably the like richer people would use. I was thinking she grew up really close with Emma and Emma's
Oh
family.
yeah.
So like she might have spent and she has the last 2 years of being just like beaten down by life and seeing like her school be like really fucked up and like gang ridden, and like people are constantly like just gone because of like drug stuff happening in their life throughout her history in school. Even when she talks about it happening for the first time when she was in like late grade school, I think, in one of the
Uh-huh.
later chapters, because like and she was never even sure if it was like he was on drugs or like something happened with his family, but she was just like, guess he's fucking gone now. So
Yeah.
she has this like weird environment that she grew up in, like they were saying earlier in the chat, like just one of the most fucked up cities probably in the country.
Pretty messed up. What does Vale said is funny because this is comic, and then 2 plus 4 times 5 says it's funny because this is Sans. Sans Undertale. My little brother Tommy can play that on the piano, and it
What?
drives me insane.
Well, it's really funny. Because like Scarlett will just like get the guitar out and then be like acting like she's gonna play a different song, then just play.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
We'll move on to Aster, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Aster is baby.
Yeah, I did. Aster's main quality is baby.
Is Aster's baby. Aster doesn't I mean, she doesn't have a personality besides being perfect and pure.
Yeah, I mean, apparently she doesn't like
Tainted.
cry out
Uh,
much.
yeah, she's like a very just docile baby seemingly. Um, and is really like Caden's motivation for everything in her life.
Yeah. I put here, Caden could justify any action by invoking Aster within her own mind.
Yeah. Aster would want this, okay? Aster would want me to order fries for the table.
Aster actually likes it when I punch out the waiter because he got my order wrong. Oh
Anyways,
boy.
here's Wonderfall. Wonderwall plays Megalovania. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Oh my god.
Exactly. I don't know that I really have anything more to say about Aster. She's just kind of like a prop for.
Yeah, she doesn't really get any kind of anything ever. So,
Yeah. Theo is sad boy. Definitely. His dad is a real
mm,
demon of a person. I'm sure he's been psychologically tormented by his controlling father his whole life. That's what I got
yeah.
onto the page. I felt like you'd have a lot to say about Theo.
Um, I liked okay, so I'm gonna say that when I first read Warm, I read up to um like right before we got to know Theo much better, and then I stopped and then I restarted. So the second time around, I didn't even get like more context for this chapter, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because I hadn't gotten to know Theo better. But now that I do, I feel like this was really good. Like talking about the his like facade and the mask that he always has like thrown up was like really interesting with where he's is it like super spoilies to say that Theo's gonna get powers?
No, I think that's fine.
Not really because he's a second gen cape. Or he's actually a third gen cape. Um
Yeah.
so
I was almost
yeah,
going to
he
mention that in the script, and I wasn't sure if I should talk about it, but I really do think it's fine.
I think it's fine because it's like obviously it's like very very uncommon to not get powers as a second gen, right?
Right, yeah.
So yeah, he just we can kind of think about like what that's going to mean later on, like if that's the aspect that is going to develop into his power, like this facade that he has on all the time, that's that he doesn't seem to want to be there in any way.
I feel like
Um,
this
it
chapter
was
draws
forced.
Theo nearly as well as it draws Caden and Max.
Yeah.
And like he gets
Um,
almost no screen time.
yeah, but still gets a lot of like character, I think. Like when he turns off the TV and is like able to not look disappointed or upset about it when he does it. I just thought that was a nice character moment. So yeah, obviously he's not a very happy boy. He seems to disagree with Caden going out in costume the way that she does. But he's not going to mention that because that would be terrible.
See,
I wonder if
even
his dad knows at all that he is you know,
that's a good
not
question.
racist.
I don't know. He's
I wonder if he like lets a lot more show through with Caden.
yeah, that might be it. Also, the other thing I was gonna say is like the way that that part of the conversation is really it like the way it's worded is really clever because she's not willing to push further, and it's not like we don't know at the time that it's like a racism thing like he's like that's bad.
Yeah.
It's at the time it almost feels like, oh, you're gonna go out in costume and get hurt again, like because that seems to be what happens to everyone
Yeah,
who
like maybe he cares for her or something.
yeah, like if he just cared for her as like a mom and she like it was like totally different circumstances. This was Brandish instead of Caden, and she was just going out fighting really hard and getting wrecked, and then Theo is just like sad that his adopted mom is getting wrecked.
2 plus 4 times 5 loves that you called Aster a prop. But like
Yeah,
she literally is. She doesn't ever become more than that. Um,
I thought
which I
Vale's
don't think is a
comment was
bad
super
thing.
funny.
I'm not a sh- I don't like babies very much.
But Vale's comment was Aster has the power to make Theo be forgotten.
Aw. Poor Theo. Yeah, Theo is somehow forgettable. He's like such a well-behaved little boy that like she doesn't even think about him, and I think that probably his pops is in a similar place.
Yeah.
He just has to be children are to be seen, not heard. He's also kind of a prop, maybe.
Yeah, I think Max is a real like uh what do you call it? Series of unfortunate events caliber bad parent.
I wonder if Max has sort of given up on Theo to some extent because it doesn't seem like he like trains him or like readies him to be a part of the the family business.
Yeah, right now it seems like he's mostly using him as a pawn against
Yeah,
Caden.
against Caden. So I wonder if he like maybe he didn't like raise him at all or whatever. So then when his wife died,
Mm.
he was just like, meh.
Yeah, jeez.
Um, yeah. So that's all I have to say about Theo. I love him though.
Okay. Good, good. I move on to Max. Terrible person, worst father. This guy is a top tier douche. We'll have a few chances to see how he negotiates, despite any fancy civilized airs that he puts on. He always squirms his little way out of an obligation and breaks his end of a deal. And he does the whole thing exactly the way that like Caden describes in this chapter to like just whoever. He's just
Mhm.
such a piece of shit. Um,
Yeah.
and he's like an ultimate bad faith negotiator. Like you should never ever trust anything he says. He will
Yeah,
lie
I don't know
forever.
why. I don't know why Kaden made that deal and she was like, he wouldn't back out of something this serious. Okay, I guess. But like the only reason he would make a deal that he wouldn't back out of if it's a win-win is if it's a win-win for him too. So like why didn't she think of that at all? Vale says Theo is overweight, non-confrontational, well-behaved. All kids rebel against their parents. This is Theo in full-grown rebellion. Aw,
He, um,
good.
that's a fun way to view it. Whereas I view it more like he's so cowed by his father. Um, but yeah, I just fucking I hate Kaiser.
Yeah,
Get
we
Shrek.
didn't even get his name, did we? His cape name.
I think it says it in here. Let me double check. Oh, you're right. You're the one who's right. It does not say
Yay!
Kaiser.
I wonder why. She just doesn't think of him as that. Maybe that's like a. She doesn't think of herself as purity either. Until
Yeah.
he calls her that or whatever at the
Well,
end.
it's just she thinks to herself, um, her eyes lit up and her hair began to turn white from the roots outward. In moments, she was her radiant alter ego, purity. Like
Her
there is a
alter ego.
there is a good chance she does not even like connect the dots. She's like, calling myself purity isn't racist. Like one of
Yeah.
those fucking people.
She's like a fucking it's like it doesn't even really make sense with her power. Like she's I get that she's like glowing white, I guess. But she's a plant lady. She's like photosynthesizes. I
Yeah,
guess
she
she probably
she's
doesn't want to let people in on that either though.
yeah, she's like a capacitor for solar power that can spit it
Yeah.
back out as like a deadly beam.
Oh yeah, I guess these were the only characters this chapter. It's a little
Yeah, it was
brief.
just those four. Yeah, it's very bleak. There's Babby, Sad Boy, um, Demon, and then perspective character.
Mhm. All right.
All right. So the next section, powers, knowledge, and world building. We get two new powers and tons of information about E88 slash the current ABB situation, sort of from a weird angle of like a person who's like, I'm not part of E88, even though she is
Yeah,
though.
but she is though.
But powers first, purity. We don't actually know her power at this point, which is kind of funny. We know that she glows and she flies around. And I thought of something that I
She
hadn't.
breaks people's bones for some reason, which that's not even part of her power,
I think that she's
right?
just
She
doing.
doesn't have super strength, right? Like she's just hitting them really hard.
Yeah, I think she's just doing the thing that some flying capes do, where they can just like beat the shit out of you or like knock you onto the ground and stuff. Because she can't
Yeah.
directly shoot people with her power; it would just auto kill them. I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Um, but let's see here. I had never thought about this aspect before, but I think I don't even know if thematically is quite the right word. Like color thematically, certainly. To her character, her powers go from like her powers make her go from having brunette hair and hazel eyes to white hair and eyes. It's like a caricature of the racists who dye their hair blonde or wear blue contacts to better fit their image of the ideal person. Um,
Yeah, definitely. I definitely thought that I think story-wise that's what it's supposed to be and then it just like fit so well and Kaiser was like, "Yes, like capitalize on this."
yeah. And then I wanted to say that she has the public-facing persona that's very unassuming. Um, and then when she suits up as Purity, her inner self is made manifest. And it also fits her like style of racism where she enforces norms through her like I don't know, shitty. I'm trying to think how to like she supports evil people regardless of how she justifies it to herself. So
Yeah.
through doing that, by lending her support to them, she is giving aid to their cause. And like in a normal setting, it'd be like I don't know if she was the wife to some evil militia leader and she uh, I don't know, made food for and like gave comfort to any like people. It's just like the that kind of like low key turn to high key. Like I'm not actually a racist. I'm just here to like take care of people, and then like
But even just being like friends with them, it's the same thing.
yeah,
Like you're
yeah,
uh I guess I don't believe in like guilt by association, but this is so much more than that.
yeah. Like she hasn't cut ties in any meaningful way that I can tell with uh any of the white supremacists, and she doesn't think it's a problem. Like she thinks that having 100% friends who are only white supremacists does not make her one, and I kind of disagree.
Yeah, she when she reaches out for help, they're the ones she's asking help for. So even if she was like super like definitely not racist or whatever, like you think that help is going to come unbiased, do you know what I mean?
Right, right, yeah.
It's just gonna, I don't know. It's gonna influence things regardless.
Vale says that her beams are concussive. I guess she just can choose to splorch people or not.
Yeah, because she can definitely mortar with them.
Mm-hmm. Do we have more to say about her power or anything like that? I just kind of
Uh,
felt like
no, we know she draws it from the light somehow, and then later on we'll learn that like it seems like it can work from artificial light, and then it's stronger if it's sunlight.
yeah,
But
the
even the artificial light was enough for her. Like he turned on lights for her, and she was like, "Oh,
oh um
ah!" She's a living glow star thing.
I was going to say that the light in his office I think is specifically do, 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 do,
Well,
do.
some halogen lights, but I don't know what that means.
So halogen, I think it's a different. Like, okay, so um, halogen light. Oh my God, they're just trying to sell me them. What is different about? Okay, so halogen light bulbs are similar to incandescent bulbs, but with a couple minor differences. They contain a tungsten filament, but unlike in incandescent bulbs, a small amount of halogen gas mixes with the tungsten vapor and deposits it back onto the filament instead of inside the bulb envelope. Well, I don't know how that would help her more. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe it's just that it was a stronger light bulb. Let's see here. What does the chat say? She was actively teamed up with them as a cape for a decade, and she never stopped. Just went on her own. 2 plus 4 times 5 says, I think halogen lights are the old heat generating ones. I could be wrong. Um,
Hmm.
hmm. Well, I guess LEDs use way less energy than halogens, so that's why we don't use halogen as much.
Huh. Okay. Well, so she can draw on just fake light, artificial light, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
charges up somehow. And we learned from William that she does not draw on emotion to use her powers. That's just like a personal motivator.
It's like when Taylor digs deep with personal memories, you know? She's not actually
Yeah.
activating her power that way. She's just like giving herself the physical grit to get through the situation with her emotions. Like,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Mm.
Vale says if she had joined the wards when she was 16 and became an actual hero, I bet she would have teamed up with Legend to have perpetual source of recharge. Yeah, I actually, so as kind of a joke, I was like thinking as a mini project, because we didn't think to do a side thing of like what would be a good cape for each Purity and Kaiser to just really chump them. And my answer for
Uh-huh.
Purity was actually Legend because it's like he does the same kind of crap as she does, but he is the like ultra S class, and I'm not sure if her like even if she hit him, I'm not certain whether or not it would even hurt him.
Her pathetic concussive beams.
Yeah, like now that I know it's concussive, I'm even more inclined to think he wouldn't be hurt than before when I thought it was energy. Uh, so it's like get get chumped, Purity, and then for Kaiser it was a character from Ward, Lord of Loss, who I thought like sort of generates an armor shell around himself and is does the same kinds of tricks as Kaiser, but just like way, way better and stronger. um oh yeah, yeah. So Kaiser's power on the powers knowledge section. As long as there's something to start with, this guy can make metal appear from existing metal. He's breaking the rules of normal physics and creating matter as long as he has a starting point. Basic stuff he can do is make armor and weapons, but he also shapes his environment to have like spikes and traps, etc. It's a pretty cool power and concept. I just don't like the guy who
Probably
has
how
it.
he got rich, huh? Just like go fucking can he disconnect from it or does it?
I think that one he can definitely disconnect from it because later we see him grow metal from things he's not touching at all.
Okay.
And then but two, um generated materials do break down after a while, but this guy would just like run a scam to like sell a bunch of metal
Yeah.
and then
You could just
like
sell like gold and then the gold will just
yeah.
break down. Okay, so it does just kind of deteriorate.
Yeah. So 2 plus 4 times 5 says fluorescent light bulbs are when you add electricity to certain noble gases, neon, xenon, etc. That roughly add up to white, whereas halogen emits more of a full color spectrum. Interesting. Maybe having a full spectrum of light is better for her power the same way that maybe like a UV charges those glow in the darks better.
Yeah.
And then said, I remember that from my astronomy class when we were doing a unit on spectroscopy. Got it. So that has to do. I bet that would allow you to use the light quality to figure out stuff about what the star is made up of and how hot it's burning. That's pretty cool.
Oh, I
Um,
put Skitter against either of them just so they could both lose the fight and lose body parts in self-defense.
yeah, in self defense.
Yeah, in self-defense. That's good, Vale. Um,
Uh, I don't think I have much more to say about Kaiser's power. I don't really understand, and this goes for like, I'm sure I just haven't cracked the code, but I don't understand what Allfather, Kaiser, Theo, what their powers, how they relate to their like mentality.
what Okay, yeah, that's what I forgot. We wanted to talk about was physical powers because I don't understand them because to me the like simplest way to understand the power, right? It's like a triangulation of an event. So you have this attribute, you have this potential power, and then if the if the stars align and you're in a shitty enough situation that needs both that like problematic attribute about yourself and then the power would help you or help you in the future or whatever, that's when you trigger, right? It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
how it works, but I don't understand how it works for physical powers then, because it's like purity. it's just whatever. She just flies around and like blasts things, and it doesn't seem to be like reliant on like it really was just made in like this life or death situation, but um she doesn't have any like schemas about that situation, right? Like she doesn't have
Yeah,
a
I'm not
fear of
sure.
starvation or lacking um I don't know, like lacking resources or something like that.
It's a little weird in that way, but unlike the majority of the parahumans who we see the perspective of, she's
Mhm.
been a cape for like 11 or 12 years, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so I thought maybe like it's kind of like how in Ward, Victoria's so twisted up about like the new thing that happened to her that she doesn't even think about her core trauma as much until later, which is like her relationship with her parents, which is like
Yeah.
it's still there, it's still like a part of her, but like if you read the first couple chapters, like you wouldn't be focused on that part. You'd be focused on her other like big problems.
Yeah.
And like Caden's got like a lot more new big problems in her life through like Max. So that's all I was really thinking is that like he dominates her mind space but had nothing to do with her trigger. So maybe that's why we can't see the
Yeah, we can't see
connection.
the connection there. And I'll definitely need to think about Theo and his do we know Theo's trigger
No, we
later
just
on?
know that it happens after that chapter where we're
Yeah.
from Crusader's perspective.
Okay. So I guess I'll just have to think about how they connect because I don't think we have enough details on Kaiser to be able to do that.
It's supposed to be a mental trigger. Uh, I guess I don't know. But I was gonna say like we don't know that many people with physical triggers. I don't think.
Mhm.
But I imagine anyone with like a basic super strength power, like I don't know, someone like Beast of Burden who can lift like any amount of weight seemingly with no like hampering to his movement. Like that is just such a brute power that I feel like he was probably just in a
Yeah, but to me, like, it seems like it would be associated with something emotionally as well,
he probably
because,
dropped some
like,
bags when he tried to take it all the groceries in one trip and it really
yeah, and
broke
he
him.
cried.
Yeah.
He's, no, I'm thinking like think about Amy, like how her power developed to like help Victoria specifically,
Mm-hmm.
or like, maybe more like Luisa
Encanto?
from Encanto, yeah, where she like feels like she needs to take care of the physical and emotional burdens of everyone else. Like to me, physical powers should have that kind of emotional basis as well. And so that's why I guess this one kind of confused me.
Yeah, well
And
oh,
same thing with Victoria, like
mhm.
she sort of has she has a physical and a mental power, right? And
I
those
think force
but those are
fields have been considered like I don't know. She has a brute power, which is like the so that sort of shapes her mentality in a way. But I don't think
uh-huh.
that most people consider the force field to be a physical power. I think hers is. I
Okay.
think from at least from my perspective and the people I've heard from who have read Ward, it really feels like she had a mental trigger, not because I mean like there was a very minor physical aspect to a very long standing like lifelong problem she had.
Yeah. I guess that's what I mean is that like all of the physical I just feel like all of the physicals are actually just also mental trigger. Like
Well,
they all have some
yeah.
mental and emotional basis to them.
I agree as well. I was gonna say an example. It's when I had like been thinking up like, oh, what powers might fit me, and I was thinking through like different points in my life, and at one point, I was skiing alone on the backside of a mountain, and I fell down it. And the
Mm.
way that I got myself back up after getting hurt was to take off my skis and just hand over hand climb directly back up the mountain, doing the technique where you use your skis as the anchors as you climb. And so I,
Mm.
I did that, and it was very rote and took a long time. And like I could easily imagine that same situation, but like colder and more deadly, and the trigger is like the physical mental combination of the like rote action over and over and over again, making this like small progress because you can't make big steps on snow.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like that's kind of what I thought of as like a physical trigger where it has so much more of a physical like aspect to it despite still having like the mental like problem associated with of like the well when you're freezing you sort of like your brain kind of numbs and you start thinking slower too. So I kind of thought of that like if that was a power then you would maybe get mentally slower as you kerchunked your way toward your enemy.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so that was just like an example of how I had thought that kind of thing might look.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
there
I
just
think
aren't
so.
that many physical triggers that I can think of. Um,
Mm.
there's like a physical aspect to Chevalier's trigger, but it still doesn't happen when he gets like physically hurt. It happens later once he's like stewed in his emotions for a long time. So
Oh no, 2 plus 4 times 5's earbud died. It's okay, we can just type out everything that we're saying.
oh,
Do some
Lung did
closed
have a
caption.
physical trigger. Although
Oh,
I
that's
guess
true.
I
I
guess
s-
he had this like I don't know the circumstances around it. Yeah, he did have a physical trigger. I agree. But I'm trying to think of a way. Yeah, it was much more because his heart was racing and stuff. He was kind of I don't know. It was going crazy. Anyway, so we can move on. Uh, Brockton Bay criminal stuff. So apparently Empire 88 is doing very well, but it's not actually clear because Kaiser isn't trustworthy source about really anything, and he's trying to act like he doesn't care about the ABB, but it's clear to me that he's just trying to do a power game with Purity to get her to fight them. Uh,
Yeah.
and then at no point in the conversation does he mention losing territory to Coil, which we know is happening from the info Glory Girl got during her
So he
interlude.
he does need like help from her.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Allfather's power, swords, he's dead. Kaiser's power, metal beams. He's a beaming icon for race. Theo's power, gets to babysit Aster tonight, so he doesn't have to handle his father for a night. Yeah.
Good one.
Um. Oh, and the thing I said that we do know is that the ABB is getting more organized and stronger, despite not having Lung. So yeah.
Yeah. So something's going on.
Oh, God. Audience participation. Talk about your thoughts on Max comparing Caden to himself and her protestations. How much of a difference between them do you see? And then I have an answer
What?
here. I didn't know if you had an answer, but I was going to read Vale's answer on the
Okay.
thingy. Vale says, I think Caden is worse in a way. Max is the sort of person that everyone knows what he stands for. Caden is the sort who convinces herself that she isn't really racist but is. Max has agency due to his wealth and power, but others can stand up to him. He is a clear, horrible antagonist. Caden hides behind her self-delusion while doing damage every day. Caden is the sort who will be on a PTA board and cast votes against minorities without even noticing she's doing it. She will cause trouble for everyone she interacts with in small, painful ways unless they are her race/ethnicity. It's Caden's that do the most damage overall in individual lives because she's not visible in her racism. the whole idea is that she thinks she's civilized about it while talking about breaking bones to send a message. She's just the worst sort of person. And then moving
Yeah.
over. Oh yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree pretty much with Vale. I guess I think that like Max is worse because
He's organizing people
there's
actively.
well, there's absolutely no way that he would ever return from this. And like in my mind,
Mm-hmm.
like Caden has the potential, like if she had the right um like people in her life, but she would have to be kind of forced. It would be more like a rehab situation. You know what I mean?
Right, but like probably Kaiser is unrehabilitable.
Yeah, definitely. But like obviously like what you mentioned, like Caden's effect on people's day to day and like people will be desensitized to interacting people with people like that and not understand that they're racist and like get radicalized in the process. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 2 plus 4 times 5 has the difference between Caden and Max is that Caden is consciously aware of Max's manipulation tactics, and yet she still falls for the bait, whereas Max is just better at being a racist gang leader. Agreed. I like these discussion questions a lot because a lot of the time, like, tons of people can answer, like, totally different stuff that I can just agree with all
And
of
we
it
all
because it's
agree
not
with, yeah.
contradicting. Yeah. Like, all of the stuff that Vale and 2 plus 4 times 5 said, I think is all true, so.
Yeah.
And then I had said about it, or do you want to wait until after mine, or do you want to go first?
No, I didn't write anything out, so you can go
Oh, I
ahead.
thought okay. I thought that maybe you would have something off the dome. But
Never.
I do actually see the two of them as quite different, but that is to say that I see them being two completely different parts of the same machine. They both work directly and indirectly toward the same ends. However much he may have manipulated and changed her over the years, she's gotten to a point where she doesn't even need to be part of the Empire 88 to be carrying out racist violence on the streets of Brockton Bay. So she's still doing his bidding, even though she's not actually under his direct control.
Yeah, true. Ugh.
And yeah, I don't know. I see Max as being worse overall because he organizes people, because he like pulls people like Caden down into the rabbit hole. But that is not to let Caden off the hook. um, yeah. So before I read this, do you have any thoughts on your
Any
answer?
final thoughts? No,
Final.
I agree with you guys all. I
Okay.
think that he is right, and it makes me sad that he's right because Max sucks, and I don't know. I guess I just like it's like so horrible to see somebody like so aware of like the ways that they're evil or whatever and just not do anything about it. So
Yeah. It sucks.
Caden sucks. Oh, I guess I wanted to mention before we like wrap up or whatever that
The
like what
part he
Vale
was
was
right about
saying.
was sorry that 2 plus 4 times 5 is suddenly questioning, and I don't want it to seem like you were saying he's right about other stuff. The part that Max was right about was just that Caden is like him.
Caden's got the same perspective or whatever as him, which is true, and she's a racist. Um, but I did want to talk about what Vale was saying that they didn't really like that they were drawn in um or whatever, and then it's like kind of as a reveal that Caden is a white supremacist. But I actually I really like how this chapter is written. Like I don't I don't feel like what maybe some people would feel is in that, oh, you're like supposed to um empathize with Caden or whatever, like he's trying to get you to empathize with her before dropping the bomb that she's this bad person to like kind of make you think like, oh, maybe white supremacists are people too.
I kind of think
You
it's
know
the
what I
other
mean?
way. From my
Yeah, I
perspective,
think it's
it's
the other way where it's like even though like she has these good parts of her, like these parts that care about her kid, the parts that care about protecting like an abused boy and like how she was groomed and all this stuff. Even all of that like doesn't excuse and doesn't pull anything back from like the evil that she is. So that's why I kind of like it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I kind of see it too as just like this stuff can hide in plain sight because if you're just willing to, like, if you just go surface level, if you just let stuff pass, if you're just like, oh, that was weird, but whatever, like, yeah, uh, so there's a lot of racists. Especially,
Yeah.
I mean, we can definitely say that. We live in fucking Idaho. There's a lot of fucking
We
racists.
just I just talk to so many like racist people every day and it's just I don't know, it makes me sad. I called I called someone racist on Discord yesterday and he was like it's just like one of those things where I'll be like kind of really aggressive about it because I know that they just they like know they know that they're racist and it just makes me so sad that like I feel like it's unavoidable to interact with these people. You know what I mean?
It
People
sucks
like
because,
Caden.
yeah, it sucks because it's like, I think I know who you mean, and like, I just feel like the people we know who, like, because I've never met this person, but I've heard
Yeah.
stories. I just can't imagine, like, putting myself in the headspace of, like, yeah, I want to actively spend time playing video games with this person that is pretty fucking openly racist.
Yeah. And like it's not like things are said. It's just like how Caden was. Like she didn't say anything specific, but like you can just feel it emanating off of her.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't like it. Don't like even like at work having to deal with people like that every
It
day.
sucks sometimes when we're on the fucking phone and then it's just like,
Oh
oh
yeah.
god, that somebody, like, whoever says whatever fucking thing.
They'll be like, "Oh, whatever about Joe Biden sometimes." And I'm like, not that I love Joe Biden or
Yeah, we're not
anything, but
fucking libs, but just when somebody complains the way in like a certain way, you're like,
you can tell.
oh yeah, you're like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sucks. But anyway, moving on. Oh god, I didn't even play the intro and outro music this time on the intro. Um,
Well, that's fine. Nobody noticed.
Nobody noticed, but I am gonna play it on the outro. I wanted to ask you if you thought we should say anything more before I fire up the outro music.
No, you can go for it.
Okay. So, it is just gonna be that quiet song, Mist over Pendle. And, so, as we end this wonderful stream, it has actually been, like, a great fun for the fact that it's such a, awful character. um, I will shout out the author of the work, Wildbow, and you can support Wildbow at patreon.com/wildbow. We can get the full free text of the work at parahumans.com, parahumans.wordpress.com. And we can get the full fan-made audiobook at audioworm.rain-online.org. And those links and the Discord server link can all be found in the description. And, oh, I didn't read the audience participation question. So for chapter 4.7 and 4.8, the audience participation question is discuss what happens to Park Ji-hoo and the significance of that moment in the story. Um, and so, as an outro, thank you for co-hosting, Vic, as always, and your art is always appreciated. It's amazing every week.
Yep.
I know everybody tells you, but it really is. Um, and thanks, chat, for coming in this week. And you know, have a good rest of the week. Bye.
Bye.